And welcome back. In this tutorial I'm going to do a brief overview of the WText widget. So let's go ahead and get started. The WText widget is basically a widget that enables you to render XHTML, and it has three states. You can display plain text, HTML text, and XHTML unsafe text. That would be for for the examples that I've come across and I've done for potentially HTML content that you cannot really display on a page. Sometimes the library has a problem displaying HTML, or like they say, potentially dangerous HTML content, probably some JavaScript or something like that. And in my example, I'm just going to show you how you can display HTML tags, header 1 tag specifically, and I'm going to also generate a HTML table. And the possibilities with this simple control are potentially endless. I'm going to show you some of the functions that are available to it. If you look at this description, basically it's saying you can use this to display, witty strings. You can also use XML files, an external XML file to do all your markup, and then you display the content through a key value pair type deal. And I'm going to show that probably in the next tutorial. I'm going to show you how you can create XML files that have HTML content, and you can actually display that content with the Witty framework. It's pretty interesting, and you use that with a Witty string. And, you also have this in Qt, a Witty string, and the function is called tr. Don't know what that is used for. I mean, what that means, but you can actually, create external content in an XML file, and it can have HTML content and display it into your web application. Then you have this set text format, and basically you just set the kind of text that you want to display. Again, it can be HTML, it can be plain text, or it can be unsafe HTML. Basically, doing some examples in JavaScript, I've noticed that Witty has really done a really good job in keeping you from having to worry about cross-site scripting. Is what they have right here. They make it really hard for you to execute scripts that you are not trying to execute. So let's go ahead and show an example. You can see they have some examples right here in the documentation. Basically they're showing you can create a Witty text on the fly with HTML tags. You can also display plain text with HTML tags, and it'll just display this onto the screen in the browser window without rendering it. But let's go ahead and do a quick introduction. So I'm gonna move this over. And as you can see, I already have a project up and running. It's called WText for Witty Text, and this is our template that we have. And basically, let's get rid of some of this and get my keyboard. You can see here. And the first thing I'm going to do is before I even do that, let's change this. We don't need a label, we actually need the Witty text header file. And I kind of come from an ASP.NET background as a hobby, so I'm going to change this to response equal to new Witty text. And basically all you need to do for one of the constructors, let's see. Let me move this back over. This one's going to be a little bit more involved in terms of me talking. If we look at the constructor, basically you can take like a parent, a Witty container widget as the parent, or you can pass in a Witty string and the Witty container as the parent, or you can do a Witty string, set the text format, and then the parent. In this case, I'm just going to do some text and then set the parent. And the default for the text format is XHTML, so you don't have to even worry about that. It does that by default. Though I will admit, in some cases, I've noticed in some cases that has not always been the case. I've had to actually set the set format because it does not render the HTML properly. So as you can see, we went ahead and set the Wt text, called it response, set the parent to our application root object, and then I'm just going to set the text. And basically all we're going to display is, this is a simple example. And then save that. And I'm going to close this. I already had a application running. Going to run CMake. And then I'm going to compile this. I'm going to refresh my page here. All right. The project has successfully been compiled. I'm going to run the server. And then I'm going to bring the browser window back open, or back over. And as you can see, the page has already been reloaded. And all it does, again, a simple widget. It just displays text onto the browser window. So let's see. Let's do something a little bit more interesting. Let's close this. I need to bring up something. Alright. And the next thing I'm going to do is show you how you can create a new instance of it. You can actually create a brand new instance. Wt text. I'm going to set the text this time. And we're going to do a horizontal line, or a horizontal rule. And then I'm going to set the parent again to the root. Now as you can see, you can do this with all Wt controls. You can go ahead and create one instance of one, and then create another instance of it, and it'll display. You'll have two different instances because there really are two different objects. So if I go ahead, compile this, close what I already got running. Okay, and then run the instance again. Bring up our browser window. If we do a refresh, as you can see, now it displays a horizontal rule. So as you can see, all we're doing is displaying just simple HTML onto our application, and you can do a lot with this control. Now the next thing I want to do is try to do a loop. I'm going to create a for loop. Start it with the number 1 for the index, less than or equal to 5, and then we're going to increment it by 1. And what we want to do here is do response. I'm going to create a new instance again, Wt text. So I'm just going to do it like that. We're going to create a Wt string because I need a little bit more flexibility. And then of course we're going to set the root, or set the parent. Now so far we have a Wt string, and we've already set the parent for our Wt text. And what I want to go ahead and do here is create a string, create a placeholder, and it's going to display the words "Hello Wt." And notice how we're doing HTML markup. Create another placeholder here, the same one really. I meant to do that. That's the ending tag. And as you can see, now we just want to add an argument to our Wt string. It's going to be the index. And let me close this. Now if you see what's going on here, we create a new instance of our response object, our Wt text. We set the parent. Basically, if you look what's going on, we're changing our HTML tag, our heading tag. We're just incrementing it by 1. So we're going to have a new instance for each one 5 times. So from 1 all the way to 5. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, all the way up to 5. And it should just print it out onto the browser. And again, this is a new instance each time. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's compile it. Alright, and then it's been compiled. Let's run it. Let's see if we can bring it up. Alright. If we do a refresh, there you go. And as you can see, all we did was have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, and heading 5. And all we did was use a placeholder using our Wt string and our Wt text object. So we can display any kind of HTML like this. You can get real creative. Now the next thing I want to do, and this is a little bit more complicated, and this should kind of wrap this up. I might do another example with plain text. If we do this, we're going to create another object. WText. And this is to show you what's actually possible. You don't have to do this. HTML unsafe, but this is just to show you that you can. We set the parent again. So there's the third constructor. You can actually just set some blank text, set the kind of format. You don't have to do this, and then set the parent. And then I'm going to do some copy and pasting here because this is quite long, but you're going to see what is possible. Now some of this, again, the library is not perfect. I tried to see if I could display all the rows and columns in the table, and it just didn't display for me in Chrome, but that's okay. Now if we look at this, and this is not my own, I actually got this and modified it. This is just basic HTML. All we did here was create a table. You can see I have the border set to 2, but it didn't really render that out. I set the align to center, that rendered correctly. I set the width to 100%, that rendered correctly. I set each of our table rows. As you can see, this is table row 1, 2, and 3. And I set the border style to solid using CSS. That actually did correctly. It did the rows correctly. But then everything else, when I tried to do like the individual columns, it didn't render it right. But as you can see, we have a column here. We have a column on the left. We have a column on the right. We have a column in the middle that shows the content, and then we have a footer column. And all this is thanks to the response object. Let's go ahead and save this. Let's compile it. All right, it's been compiled. Let's run it. And if we do a refresh, as you can see, we have our examples here, and here is our table. So you can see the power of this. I mean, here's your column, your left, your right. I wanted to actually have a column where we had some borders on the columns, but it just wouldn't render correctly. But it did, you know, each of our sidebars, it did our content, and it did our footer, all correctly. And this is all pure HTML from a string. You know, the possibilities of this are endless. You could use a string stream and put all your text in a string stream, you know, format it the way you want, and then pass that as a string into your WText object by setting the text, because it can take C style strings, C++ strings or a Wt string, and then you can just do your placeholders or whatever you want to do, and it can display your HTML on the text. Let me see, I might do one last example. Let me see here, just to show you what's possible. Yeah, I might as well just do a copy and paste of this just to show it. Copy. Let's do a new response object, or WText. I think, what did I do? Well, actually I can do that. Didn't have to be an add widget. New WText. There's your text. There's the format. Let's get rid of that. And then let's just set the parent. Make this as quick as possible. And it should just display that as just plain text. So if we compile this, and actually I didn't need to do that. I could have got rid of this, but that's okay. And if we run it again, if we refresh, and as you can see right here at the bottom, it displayed our italics, our HTML, and it didn't even render it because we use plain text. So you could, if you ever wanted to figure out, okay, how can I actually display HTML itself onto the browser window without it rendering, just set the format to plain text, and it'll display all your HTML onto the screen, and you won't have to do anything. So I figure that is a huge time saver. If you ever wanted to do that, you could do that for like documentation if you wanted to use, or some kind of tutorial. So that's pretty much some of the basics for the WText widget. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can use the WText widget with XHTML and the Wt string object as well. So see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.